Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with a look at the market for the week ending Friday, May 18th, 2018. And as usual, we'll take a look at the disclaimer. Urge you to read it since it'll explain that the purpose of this video is for simply instructional purposes and for my own edification as well. It's not investment advice. So the first thing we look at is a weekly chart, as we usually do. A weekly chart of the S&P. We can see that ABCD triangle here. Notice that we had quite a few these inside bars, beginning with this one here. These small-bodied bars. Since we had this drop here in March, the market has been gradually working its way up. So a couple of weeks ago, we had these two hammers, and 2 weeks ago we had this bullish bar closing outside of the triangle. So that's a nice bullish sign. Now we still have the parabolic above the most recent bars, and that has been so since the market dropped in February, right here. When we get this parabolic being hit by the next or successive bars, any bar in the future, this parabolic should be going below the most recent bar, signaling finally that the parabolic is indicating that we are now in an uptrend on the weekly chart. We have the 50-day moving average right here, this magenta line, and so you notice we talked about this before, that we found support here, here, and here 3 times. So the other thing that I noticed here is that all 3 of these moving averages now are above each other. The shorter one above the 4 EMA, above the 9, just slightly, but it's above it, and the 9 is above the 30 weighted moving average. So we have the reverse now right here that we've had over here for a long time, since we came down in January, February. That's a good sign for the bullish indication anyway. Now, MACD histogram has continued to trend up ever so slightly, and also RSI 12 remains above the 40% line. That's bullish. It means that the trend is up now on the weekly chart anyway, according to these indicators. Williams percentile remains above 50, and as you know, I like to see that because 50% is a sort of a line in the sand for me. I feel comfortable holding stocks or the S&P index or whatever once we're above the 50% line on the Williams percentile with a 4-day period. And the sum of the rate of change indicator, Jerry Appel's indicator, slightly above the 4% line. It's now at 4.60. So seems to me we're still setting up here. We're still moving out from this triangle. And what we need to see now is this parabolic hit and goes below the next bar or couple of bars in the future, and we would have another nice move up from there going into the summer, I suppose. Let's look at the daily chart. Now on this daily chart of the S&P, since we had this morning star, this bullish morning star candlestick formation, I hope you recall that. You had this bearish bar, you had this doji hammer, and then you had a nice bullish engulfing bar. That's a morning star, bullish candlestick formation. We've had this nice run up here. Now in the process of running up here, we hit the upper Bollinger Band on a couple of occasions, and so that's 2 standard deviations. That's sort of pretty much outside the envelope, you know. And since then, we've pulled back here. Last couple of days of trading, we pulled back. And so we're consolidating this gain here. We've been consolidating here. What it means also is that we're pulling back into what Alex would call an area of consensus of value and a buy zone, basically somewhere between the 9 and the 30. So we're pretty much in that area now, in the buy zone. So uptrend, consolidation, moving into the buy zone, I'm holding. MACD histogram pulling back a little bit, but there is no divergence to be concerned about, no bearish divergence. And RSI 12, you can see how it's trending up nicely here. Williams is above the 50% line, the percent-hour, and although it pulled back a little bit because of this consolidation, and the sum of the rate of change indicator dipped below 4%, is at 3.21. Again, because of the consolidation here. So I'm not too concerned about that, and I think we are setting up to go higher. The parabolic, notice that the parabolic is still below the most recent bars, and the moving averages, the 4 above 9, 9 above 30, and we're also above the 50-day moving average. So I think all in all, we should expect higher prices. We did reach some resistance at the Bollinger Band, which is 2 standard deviations, but we're consolidating and we should be looking to move higher. Now here's S&P on the best choice chart showing the regression channel. We can see we tested the 10% line here a couple of times, and then we moved up a little above the 50% line here. So we're at 63 now on the extreme percent. We have a ways to go up to become overbought at the 90% line. So that tells us that we're not overbought at this time. So again, given the scenario we looked at earlier, this market should go a little higher from here after the consolidation. Here's a stock charts chart of the spread between new highs and new lows, a 5-day average, and you can see that we are now above the 50 and the 200-day moving averages, I should say. So that looks good. As long as we stay above this 200-day average, we should see some higher prices here, because we're seeing new highs exceeding new lows by quite a bit. Another stock charts chart, we're looking here at the impulse indicator, the painted bars. We are now painting blue. The bars are being painted blue for the last 4 days of last week. So we became, we saw that on the parabolic. We hit the Bollinger Band. We saw we did this and we hit the upper Bollinger Band and we pulled back a bit. But it should go higher from here. When the bars are blue, we can go either long or short. We're allowed to go long or short. Okay, we can go either way. And since we have this nice uptrend here, I think we're going higher from here. Here's a chart of the McClellan indicator on the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, and you can see that it's above the 200-day and the 50-day average, and that's usually a good sign for stocks. And one last chart from the stock charts is the S&P 100, the percentage of stocks above their 200-day moving average. And we can see that it's still between the 50 and 65% range. So in that range, we could safely trade the market or do some buying, at least at this level here. But typically, we would like to see it cross above 65% to become decidedly more bullish. We're not in that camp yet because we're still below the 65% line. Okay. We'll take a look at some daily charts of those stocks, many of the stocks we have listed on the TC2000 main watch list for 2018. We're starting with EXPD, Expeditors International. You can see that we had a nice bullish run here. And of course, we're hitting the upper Bollinger Band, riding it up, and now we're consolidating. Look for it to continue to go higher from here, as long as the weekly looks okay, and it should. Yeah, we had a nice bullish engulfing bar on the weekly chart. Let's look at another one. Here's a weekly chart of Etsy. My friend Laura is the one who recommended this to me. And I've traded it and made some money with it, but I don't own it right now. It had a nice uptrend here, hit the Bollinger Band and consolidated. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go higher. I suspect that this thing might be might be bought out by some bigger company eventually. Next stock on the list is EPAM Systems. I believe they do some cloud services. They provide cloud services, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, it broke out of this triangle. We had a target of 134.82, and it pretty much got there on this bar, pulled back, and is seemingly attempting to rally again. Looks like one to keep an eye on. Here's one of the stocks on that list. It's RingCentral. And I put a note next to it when I first sent the list out saying it's on a nice steady uptrend. Well, this is why I said that. Look at this. A nice weekly trend, right? Which is nice to see. And if you look at the daily chart, it seems to make a nice run up and consolidate, and it keeps chugging along. I don't own it, but it looks interesting. Here's Nvidia. This is a daily chart, and you can see that Nvidia rallied nicely here, but was riding the upper Bollinger Band. And at some point, as we've seen so many times, when that happens, you're going to get a pullback. So we got a pullback here into the buy zone between the 9 and the 30. Now it seems to want to rally a bit from here. So Nvidia looks like an interesting area here now. Look at these indicators. They're above the key levels. And here's CRISPR, one that I own quite a few shares of. It's one of my biggest holdings. We had an ABCD triangle, and it clearly broke out of the triangle last week. This is a weekly chart. This is a nice bullish candle. Now, we hit the upper Bollinger Band with it, so don't be surprised to see a bit of a consolidation. And actually, the parabolic now is below the most recent bar. And if we look at the daily chart, you can see that it's been riding this upper Bollinger Band here, coming out of sort of a squeeze here on the Bollinger Bands. And on Friday, we pulled back a little bit, but there was a significant gain here on Thursday. I think it was 13%. So much for that. I love it. Here's another one on that list, E+. Actually, the symbol is plus, P-L-U-S. Software application. I'm not quite sure what they do. Got to look that up. But if you look at the weekly chart, this is an interesting chart. Had a nice big rally here, split 2 for 1, pull back after the pullback of the rest of the market, but now seems to be trending up again, riding the upper Bollinger Band. Very interesting. A weekly chart of Ross Stores, ROST, similar kind of thing. Ran up, pull back, and now going up again. It's coming out of a squeeze as well. I sent you a note on Costco, and I bought some calls on it, expiring I think in June or July. I gotta go back and check that out. But it seems to be riding the upper Bollinger Band coming out of this squeeze. So I'm holding those calls. As you know, I own Adobe, quite a few shares, and I like the weekly chart. Here's a weekly chart, and look at that. I love that. Nice steady upcline, and I have a target of 249. I don't know if we'll get there, but I don't own any options. I own the shares themselves. Here's Netflix, weekly chart. I like the weekly chart, the way it looks. These indicators are looking good. Pulling back a bit here, but it's working its way to the end of this triangle. I have some calls on it, a July call. Here's a daily chart of Microsoft. Some time ago, we had this ABCD triangle, calculated a target of 103.34. We didn't quite get there. This was what, 98. But we hit the upper Bollinger Band here, we pull back, we hit it again, we pull back. So now I would expect it to start working its way up again. Here's Visa. As you know, this is a weekly chart. I own it. I keep adding to it. I love the steady rate of increase here of the price here. So I still own it. Here's a daily chart of Align Technologies. And boy, it just broke out of this triangle ABCD, and target is 330, and it's now at 298. This thing could conceivably go much higher. Look at these other indicators here. We don't have much time left, so I'm going to call it a day for now, and we'll hope to do this again next week. Have a nice day, and God bless.